TV KPM.
Welcome back, all of you out there. As you can see, these are the 10 poems that you have on your list. This is the syllabus that you have to deal with. All 10 poems must be read, analyzed thoroughly. For today, we are specifically going to look at Daffodils by William Wordsworth. Right? See how gorgeous they are. Right? Imagine yourselves being in a field, somewhere outside, blue skies, bright sunshine, beautiful daffodils. How would you feel? Yeah?
I'll feel liberated.
Liberated. Okay, let's see. What do we know about this poem? Initially feeling lonely, alone, yeah? Miserable. This poem shows us, the readers, how the persona's unexpected encounter. He suddenly comes across a field of these yellow daffodils, and observing them, watching them, lifts his mood. Very much like Hanif's answer earlier, liberated, that sense of freedom from the initial sadness that he feels. We later realize that what the persona is trying to express is how that memory, happy and cheerful memory, remains with him and helps him whenever he feels sad, whenever he has a moment of trouble. Okay, historically speaking, Daffodils by William Wordsworth is celebrated as a classic example of romantic poetry. And for those of you who have done this poem with your teachers, I know you know what I'm talking about. All right, romanticism as a subgenre of poetry. Romanticism focuses on appreciating nature, appreciating our surroundings, acknowledging the treasures that nature holds and how they are significant to man. Romanticism as a genre also focuses on man's creative imagination, how we as men have relationships with other human beings and our surroundings. So romanticism is very evident in this poem. It started out as a casual observation on the part of his sister, Dorothy Wordsworth. She wrote it in her journal, and he found it very interesting. He turned it into the poem that we know today. Daffodils stands in this form. It is made up of 4 stanzas, as you can see. It begins with the very famous line, "I wandered lonely as a cloud." So wandering sort of aimlessly with no sense of direction, not knowing where to go. And then it continues with the 3rd line, "when all at once," meaning suddenly, unexpectedly, "I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils." So the 2nd and the 3rd stanza focus a lot on how the persona felt as he sat there perhaps under the trees, just admiring the beauty of the daffodils. It felt as though they had invited him in to watch a performance. He complied. He said, "Okay, I'll sit down and watch." And as he watched the show, he felt so much better. He says there, a poet could not but be gay. Gay there meaning
Happy.
Cheered up, happy, overjoyed. All right, those are the words that come to mind. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. You can't stay miserable, you can't stay sad when you are in the company of such golden daffodils, brilliant in color, performing for you. That's what he says. In the last stanza, what does he end with? "My heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils." All right? So I normally ask my students, is there a happy memory that you have in your personal collection of thoughts and experiences that always magically can cheer you up? That's exactly what happened here. Right? That's exactly what happened with William Wordsworth's persona in this poem, where he felt so much better after observing the field of golden daffodils. Now that we've seen the poem and we know it is a romantic poem made up of 4 sestet stanzas. Right? I'm sure Hanif is wondering. I'm going to explain for him. A sestet is a stanza that is made up of a quatrain, that's 4 lines, and then a couplet, and that's 2 lines. So each one of the 4 stanzas you see in this poem is made up of a sestet. So 4 times sestets, 24 lines. A lot of students will say, wow, structured, organized. Yes, it is a structured poem. And it has a rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. Those are the first 4 lines, followed by the couplet, C, C. Right? So you have a rhyme scheme, you know what the poem looks like. We also know that in this poem, Daffodils is rich with poetic devices. What are the devices we have? We have hyperbole, to exaggerate and emphasize, right? They stretched in never-ending lines. So it sounds like there were as many daffodils as far as the eyes can see. You also have simile, a comparison being made, where the persona is being compared to a cloud. Then you have 2 other devices. You have personification, right? What is the example that I have there? Fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Who is dancing in the breeze? The daffodils. So the daffodils there in the poem are being described as though they are actually dancers, dancing along to music and performing for the persona. Then you have an example here of visual imagery. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, where? Beside the lake, beneath the trees. So you can visualize how he had walked along with no sense of direction, and then he had unexpectedly come across this field of daffodils, and how that encounter was so beautiful to just sit and watch, right? So here's the poem again, but as you can see, I've colored the answers that were mentioned earlier, all right? In these lines here, those are examples of simile, personification, hyperbole, as well as visual imagery. What other examples can you see? Examples of personification, examples of hyperbole. Okay, Hanif is about to cry. He can't figure out what the answer could be. I'm going to ask one of my students to try and help you out.
Please do. I think I would need help here. Let's take a look at her answer.
Well, teacher, I found other examples for all 3. For hyperbole, there is 10,000 saw I at a glance, referring to the daffodils. For personification, I found the line tossing their head in sprightly dance as a very good one. And lastly, for visual imagery, the phrase outdid the sparkling waves in glee is a very good example as well.
Yes, that was a great help for me. Her answers right, Puan A.
Right. So when you have there 10,000 saw I, obviously you're going to ask yourself, really? Did he count the daffodils one by one? Surely not. So this device using 10,000, hyperbole there, emphasizes how he felt. He felt as though he was looking at 10,000 daffodils. When you have tossing their heads, whose heads? The daffodils' heads. So you have there the daffodils dancing along like they were actual dancers, right? And here, outdid the sparkling waves in glee, a beautiful example of, what is this?
Sparkling waves in glee.
Would you
Well-
say visual imagery? Yes, we can. This is an example of how the daffodils were in competition with the daffodils, the waves and the daffodils. Okay, so far?
Right, I think that sounds good. So a personification here is, how do I describe a personification here?
Okay, good question. What is, let me write this here. Please excuse my scribble. What is personification? Personification is a device that we use when we put or place human traits, human characteristics to something that may not be alive, a non-living thing. So you may come across sentences like, the sky cried today. We know and understand that from that sentence, the meaning or actual meaning is there was heavy rain. Okay, the sky cried today. When we look at the poem, we find that you have personification being used to put their human characteristics, human traits to the daffodils. Of course, Hanif is going to say, yeah, but the daffodils are just flowers.
Didik TV KPM